At 6:42 p.m., emergency services received a call from a quiet residential block. The caller reported a woman collapsing in her kitchen while preparing dinner. When paramedics arrived, the stove was still on low heat. A pot of stew simmered without boiling over. The smell was ordinary: onions, garlic, something acidic. Tomato, maybe? Nothing sharp. Nothing chemical. The woman was found on the tiled floor between the sink and the counter. Supine. Eyes open. No visible trauma. No signs of a struggle. Her right hand was curled loosely, as if she had dropped something seconds before losing control of her body. She was alive when they loaded her into the ambulance. Barely. The kitchen, at first glance, looked immaculate. Too immaculate. Every counter surface reflected the overhead lights. No crumbs. No spills. The cutting board beside the sink had been washed and set upright to dry. A knife rested in the dish rack, blade down, clean enough to pass for unused. Plates sat stacked. The trash bin was empty, lined with a fresh bag. There was no half-prepared meal left out. No vegetable scraps. No clutter that suggested interruption. Except for the stove. The pot continued to simmer, unattended. At the hospital, doctors worked fast. Her vitals were unstable. Blood pressure dropping. Pupils sluggish. She began vomiting within minutes of arrival, dark, bitter-smelling fluid that didn't match anything listed in her dinner ingredients. Blood work revealed the problem. Poison. Not household grade. Not accidental exposure. Something refined. Deliberate. Meant to enter the body quietly and move fast. By the time investigators were notified, the woman was unconscious. They returned to the house just after midnight. The kitchen lights were still on. Crime scene technicians noted the temperature first. The room was warm, recently occupied. Windows closed. No sign of forced entry. The door locks were intact. Then they began documenting the surfaces. The counters had been wiped with care, not haste. No streaks. No residue from common cleaning sprays. Whoever cleaned knew how to remove traces without leaving behind obvious chemical signatures. The table was bare. No placemats. No fingerprints visible to the naked eye. Chairs pushed in evenly, as if reset. The sink was dry, except for one detail. The sponge. It rested in a small plastic holder beside the faucet. Still damp. Compressed slightly, as if squeezed out moments before being set down. Clean, but not unused. Water samples from the drain showed recent flow. The pipes beneath the sink were still warm. Someone had washed this kitchen shortly before the woman collapsed, or immediately after she began to feel unwell. Investigators moved to the refrigerator. Inside, food was arranged neatly. Leftovers labeled. No expired items. No missing containers that would suggest something removed in a hurry. The spice rack was intact. Oils sealed. Cleaning supplies under the sink were minimal, nothing corrosive, nothing unusual. They checked the trash outside. Empty. No wipes. No paper towels. No discarded gloves. Whoever cleaned had taken the waste with them. On the counter near the stove, a single glass stood upside down on a drying mat. No water spots. No fingerprints. The pot on the stove was tested next. The stew appeared normal in color and smell. Samples were taken, sealed, labeled. The spoon resting beside the pot had been washed. No taste tests left behind. No drips on the handle. In most poison cases, something is missed. A residue. A smear. A rushed cleanup that leaves behind panic. This kitchen showed patience. It showed intention. The woman had been alone, according to neighbors. No visitors that evening. No raised voices. No unusual sounds. Just the hum of routine. Dinner time. Weeknight quiet. Investigators noted the timeline. Cooking began. Poison introduced. Symptoms delayed just long enough. Kitchen cleaned. Collapse. The order mattered. The cleanup had not been an afterthought. It had been part of the plan. By 2:13 a.m., the scene was fully documented. Samples bagged. Photographs taken. Every surface logged. The kitchen looked ready for a real estate listing. Except for the absence. Whatever delivered the poison was gone. And whoever made sure it stayed that way knew exactly how much time they had before anyone came looking. The woman regained consciousness briefly at 4:18 a.m. Not long enough to speak in full sentences. Long enough to react. When asked what she had eaten, her eyes moved first toward the door, then away. Her heart rate spiked. She tried to shake her head but stopped halfway, as if the motion hurt more than it should have. Toxicology confirmed what the blood work had suggested earlier. The poison wasn't fast. It wasn't sloppy. It was designed to be swallowed with food and give the body just enough time to fail quietly. No burning in the mouth. No immediate pain. Nothing that would make someone stop eating. The problem was not what was found in her system. It was what wasn't. Investigators returned to the kitchen in daylight. Sunlight revealed things artificial light had softened. The counters still gleamed, but now faint circular patterns appeared, consistent wiping motions, repeated over the same areas. Not rushed. Methodical. The sponge was collected and sent to the lab. It came back clean. No poison residue. No cleaning agent strong enough to destroy trace evidence. Just water. Warm water. That detail changed the direction of the case. The poison had not been neutralized. It had been removed. Whatever carried it had been taken out of the house entirely. Investigators focused on the meal. The stew tested negative. So did the pot. The spoon. The stove knobs. Every component of the visible dinner was clean in the forensic sense, not just the visual one. Attention shifted to what never made it to the table. There was no bread. No salad. Bowl. No dessert plates. No empty packaging. The refrigerator inventory showed a missing item, a small, resealable container that should have held homemade stock. The label was still there on the shelf. The container was not. Neighbors were interviewed again. One detail surfaced this time. At around 6:20 p.m., a neighbor had seen someone leave the house carrying a small trash bag. Not unusual on its own. Except it wasn't trash day. And the bag was light enough to swing. Security cameras 2 streets over caught a figure walking calmly, not running, not looking back. Gloves on. Hood up. The bag went into a public bin 3 blocks away. By the time police searched it, it had been emptied. Back at the house, investigators examined the table more closely. Underneath it, taped to the underside of the wood, they found a folded paper towel. Clean. No poison. No blood. Just pressure marks where fingers had pressed it flat. It wasn't used to wipe a spill. It was used to handle something small, briefly, without leaving prints. That something never touched the counter. Never touched the sink. Never touched the sponge. It went straight from container to mouth. Doctors confirmed the final piece. The poison would have broken down quickly once diluted. In liquid form, it would leave almost nothing behind after ingestion. A solid would have left traces. This hadn't been a solid. The delivery method wasn't the stew. It was a sip. A glass of water. A taste of stock. Something consumed casually before the main dish. The glass on the drying mat was tested again. This time, technicians swabbed the rim differently, using a solvent that reacted with the microscopic etching left behind when certain toxins bind briefly to glass. They found it. Barely there. But enough. The glass had been washed. Thoroughly. Carefully. But it had been washed too soon. Before the poison had fully degraded. The timing mattered. Someone had been in that kitchen after the poison was consumed and before the collapse. Not to help. To erase. The woman survived. She never identified who was with her that evening. She said she had been alone. But the kitchen said otherwise. It showed preparation without panic. Cleaning without chaos. And a decision made early to remove the delivery method, not the victim. The case file closed without an arrest. In the final report, one line stood out. The absence of residue was not evidence of innocence, but of practice. The kitchen stayed clean. Because that was always the point.